things take a minute now.
Not necessarily.
Depends if it's been a minute.
So
They don't have to.
did you guys happen to see a couple of my videos that I put out this week? So one of them was, if you want to know what your 2025 is supposed to look like, you look at the number one movie the week you turn 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And mine was American Gigolo.
I thought yours
That's
would
for 2025.
Yeah, so I'm like, well,
wait.
American Gigolo, Richard Gere was like cougar candy in that movie. It was always the older women that he went to. So for me, I'd have to like court the I've fallen and I can't get up lady. Where's the beef chick?
Well, you're almost there. So, I did this the other day. Mine was Smokey and the Bandit too. I'm like, yes.
I'll take that. Hey,
Look
Kristen.
at-
Hey, Johnny. Hey, Tony. The other one was even funnier. It was look at the movie, look at the song on Billboard's Top 100. Look at the song that was 25 the day you turned 25. And mine was Short Dick Man.
What? No, is that even a song?
Unfortunately,
How
yes.
do you search it? What do you put the top movie?
Top movie, and then you put your birthday at 10 years old. So my birthday is 1970, so I put February 1st, 1980, top movie. Johnny says Naked Gun 33 and the final insult.
I can't make this up.
What's
What was
yours?
yours?
There's several of them, but one of them is Octopussy.
Oh my God.
Hey, Life. Good to see you. Hi, Kristen. Hey, Goddess.
What?
Well, then.
It's Return of the Jedi, Superman 3, Trading Places, and Octopussy.
Wait, Trading Places when you were 10? Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Okay.
Oh my God.
Mine was, I said mine was Smokey and the Bandit too, but then it was also, my song was 25 at 25 was You Used to Love Me by Faith Evans. That's awful. God. Couldn't I have had, I mean, come on, man. That's so weak.
Better than Short Dick Man.
And then the next one is your top song.
The next one is look the week you turn 25. So you go to Billboard 100. There's a calendar there, and you can just put in your birthday on your 25th birthday. And then scroll down to song number 25.
Shells is going to be like Naughty Girls Need Love Too by Samantha Fox.
Probably about close. Well, no, not at 25.
No, 25 you would be 1992, right? So it's going to be like
I'll be Missing You by Puff Daddy. And
P. Diddy?
Jesus.
So that's not good.
that's not good.
Find another week.
It doesn't mean what song it is if it's by P. Diddy and that's your 2025.
You Were Meant for Me by Joel and Unbreak My Heart by Tony Braxton.
Angie says Fantasy by Mariah Carey. Movie Days of Heaven for Kristen. Song was Grease by Frank Valli. I take that. Yeah, I'm not a fan of my song. And the movie, like I said, being a gigolo would be fine, but for the fact that, again, Richard Gere was a gigolo for older women. And for me to be a gigolo for older women, like I said, when Claire's yelling, "Where's the beef?" I'm like, right here.
No, you want to be like the David Lee Roth. I'm just a gigolo. That's
being a gigolo now for older women,
right?
Like we're looking at, like, you know.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's who he was in the movie. Every woman he was with was 20 years older than him. I'm 55, so
75.
Not saying the 75-year-old women aren't viral and all that good stuff. Virile.
Viral.
I do hear that happens in retirement communities.
Yeah, I don't live too far from one of them. The Village is a few hours up the road, and I've heard some stories.
Oh, Marie says my movie was Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's awesome. I'm working on a video right now where Gen Z is attacking our movies. I have clips of people saying they hate Breakfast Club, they hate The Goonies, and they hate Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
They probably hate themselves, too.
I agree.
Cancel. Immediate cancellation.
Well, I'm having fun putting the video together. I'm shredding them.
John out here breaking hearts and hips.
Literally.
That is the comment of the day right there.
Oh, John, you're breaking hearts and hips.
It sounds like it could be a good song.
Good job,
Good
JTR.
song title.
All right, guys. Well, welcome to the Three View Mirror. our weekly time to get together and look back as we're moving forward and discuss three of the best decades in the history of the world. Talking about pop culture from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s. And every week, one of us gets to have the hosting duties. And yes, every week I try to slip in the word duty and come up with those three topics.
Okay, Chandler.
The other two do not know what the three topics are, nor does our virtually live studio audience giving their heckling and their comments from the side there. But something within those three topics has a common thread, a common core, a common idea that weaves itself through all three. And as we discuss each individual topic, at the end, we try to see if anybody can figure out what the host has determined to be the hidden meaning between the three topics. Sometimes we get it. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes we don't get it, and sometimes it's impossible. But today's host is Rochelle, so all bets are off as to how this is going to go. My name is John Katrides, better known as Gen X Jono. You can find me on Facebook for the next 3 days, possibly, on TikTok, Instagram, and here on YouTube. And I'm joined by two of my best friends in the world that I've yet to meet in person. Shall say hi.
Crazy. I'm Rochelle Black, better known as Gen X Show. I've been absent from my social media, took a little bit of a break. I will be back very, very soon. You can find me on the maybe TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all the other places that you can find goofy Gen X videos.
And I'm Chris Clues, better known as Chris Clues, keynote speaker and author. Write and talk about the lessons for life and work that we can learn from 80s pop culture. And, I may be in a city near you at some point. I'll be in Tampa the first week in February for a speaking gig, and I'll be there the whole week. So maybe we'll find some time to meet.
Nice. And I will mention I will be in Orlando the first week in February. More on that coming soon, but I will be attending the MegaCon in Orlando from February 6th to February 9th. If anybody is in Orlando and is going to attend, look for me. I will be all over that place. And for now, let's get back to the 3-view mirror. All right. The show is yours, Shell.
I think this is going to be a really fun show because we have a nice little thing at the end here that is a nice little surprise for us. First topic, Back to the Future. Yes, they're great topics. Second, Boogie Nights, if you remember Boogie Nights. And then the third, and usually the most random and fun topic, is game shows.
I love it.
Game shows.
Yes.
Yeah. So Back to the Future. If somebody wants to type that in there, the topics are Back to the Future, Boogie Nights, and game shows.
I love Boogie Nights because we try to make sure that one of these spans the 70s, one touches the 80s, one touches the 90s. Your game shows touches all three.
Yes.
Back to the Future is kind of 80s and 50s and 2015 and all of that.
Yeah.
And best yet, we got Boogie Nights, which was 90s.
Yeah.
Right?
97.
But took place in the 70s.
Yeah.
So I love the topics. I'm familiar with all three, and I can't wait to get started.
All right. Let's get started. You want to start with Back to the Future? You want to start in the order that we're in?
Whatever you want. You're in charge.
All right. Let's start with Back to the Future. Get thoughts on Back to the Future because everybody has an opinion on Back to the Future because it's just one of the most iconic movies out there.
So the good news for you, Shell, is unlike me last week, you don't have people saying they hate your topics. So this is a good start for you. I love, there you go. Clearly, yeah. The hoverboard.
The hoverboard in the background. Mm-hmm. You know what, though, Chris? Us hating the topics last week, some of the people that we talked about, it was the most fun, though, talking about all of that. Your topics last week were the bomb. They really were. They were
thanks. At least we had fun with Ditto Paper.
Yes.
So just like we did back in the day. So I'm going to say, I love Back to the Future. I think Back to the Future is so much of what I love about 80s and 80s cinema. And what we've lost, I always talk about this, what we've lost with 80s cinema with the CGI and not shooting on location anymore. And these fantastical stories that they used to tell that ultimately at the end, like it ended the way we wanted it to. Like we're cheering for this person and they actually win. And I'm just, I can be as cynical as the next person, but I do like to see the people I'm cheering for actually win the day. Like that's kind of why I pay for the ticket. So I loved it.
I love the movie. I love the trilogy. I remember being excited as each one left off on a bit of a cliffhanger, kind of letting you know, especially the second into the third. I love the fact that the second and third were filmed concurrently. So as soon as the second one was over, back in the 80s, back when we were growing up, movies took a while to get going. So if you saw one, it was 2, 3, 4 years before two came out. It took a while. So when two ended, and immediately in the credits, they're like coming this summer, part 3, and you knew it was already filmed and ready to go. That was cool. Life says, I think I got it, but I'll remain silent. Well done. I forgot to issue the warning.
Don't say anything. If
Yeah,
you
let's
know the
hold it until
connection.
the end. I think I might have it as well, but I'm going to hold it. I could be wrong. But the other thing I love about it is just how much backside trivia there. Maybe I should reword that. Behind the scenes trivia. The fact that Michael J. Fox wasn't the first one to play the part of Marty, that they actually filmed a good chunk of the movie with somebody else.
Yeah.
And then had to reshoot and stuff. I just love all that stuff.
Eric
Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz, yes.
Yeah.
And you can still actually find, for anybody that doesn't know that, and I think a lot of Gen Xers know that, you can still find clips of that online and see the role of him playing. And then when you see it, and then you see the Michael J. Fox, and you're like, thank God he was recast in that. You know what I mean? Thank God they took him out of that. Nothing against Eric Stoltz, but Michael J. Fox was the absolute person for that role.
He's Marty McFly. And it's the same thing with, and listen, like you said, no offense to Eric Stoltz, because he's a pretty good actor in his own right, but he's not Marty McFly. And the same way that Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they offered it, or I think they offered it, or they were talking to Tom Selleck. And listen, Tom Selleck's awesome, but thank God it didn't happen, because we got Magnum PI and Indiana Jones exactly the way they were supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Great comment by JTR. I don't know about the rest of you. I didn't notice they changed Jennifer's. Not in real time, not when I was watching it as a kid. When we went from the one movie to the next and they changed the actress, I did not pick up on it at all. We also didn't notice that they switched his father out as well, which generated a lawsuit because he claimed they used his image in an effort to keep him in the role, even though he wasn't being compensated for it.
Crispin Glover, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's an interesting dude. So it's Spielberg magic. And I think that's what, I really love about it. Like there are certain directors, when I hear their name attached to something, I'll go see it, because I know at the very least, I'm going to walk out of there going, wow, I just escaped for a couple of hours in any way. And that's what he was. Now, obviously his movies got a little more serious as he got into the 90s, but man, that stuff in the 80s was just awesome. And it was so much fun. And, then was 2015. So, we're 10 years past that. And I don't think we have the stuff they talked about.
We also have to touch on the fact that people say it all the time. If they were to make this movie today, Marty in the original went back 30 years. So he traveled from 85 to 55. And when he went to 1955, it was a completely different world.
Mm-hmm.
He looked alien in that world, in his dress and in his mannerisms and in his vernacular. Everybody picked him out. He stuck out like a sore thumb. He was in a strange world. It was so different than the one he had left behind. If we did that movie today, we'd be traveling to 1995. And when I watch Friends, which is my best reference point for what the late 90s looked like, he wouldn't have stuck out like a sore thumb. If I go back to 1995, I might have owned this t-shirt back then anyway. I'm pretty sure the jeans I'm wearing are at least that old.
That hat is definitely that old.
This hat is definitely that old.
There were a few iconic clothing points throughout the time in like the 80s or the 90s and so on. A few iconic looks, maybe with the hair and such, but I don't think anything you can distinctly pick out the 60s, the 50s, the 70s, or maybe that's just
the 80s.
In the 80s, I think the big hair and everything, but I think once we started moving into the 90s, the 2000s, and so on, it's been a little bit of a melting pot of those things.
It's just everything kind of blended together. You know, I don't know. Like it definitely the 80s for sure stands out. And if you're going back from the 80s to the 50s, there's no question.
Huge difference.
Huge difference. And yeah, I mean, I talk about soundtracks too. I mean, come on, like Back to the Future. I'm a huge Huey Lewis and the News fan. Maybe I'll find a way to sneak him in on an episode at some point. But that's how the show. Jeez.
Well, and then we move forward to 30 years, right? So then he went from 1985 to 2015, and the writers of the movie expected the same amount of change to happen in the 30 years moving forward. So if you look at their vision of what 2015 was supposed to look like, based on what our perceptions of time was in 85, we thought, gee, look how much changed from 55 to 85. We have to envision a world that's going to change just as much going to 2015. Which is now 10 years in our past, and there wasn't that much change. The world they imagined was vastly more futuristic in a lot of ways, pseudo-futuristic, than the world we experienced in 2015. That being just one of many examples.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flying cars being another.
And you couldn't have, I mean, I don't know, like the whole scene at the prom or the dance or whatever, like it would be hard to do that because rock and roll was just like having its like its moment in the 50s. And so it was perfect for that when he's up on stage with the guitar. And I don't know, that whole scene, how do you do that? And if you replace it, what do you replace it with? I'm not really sure like how that actually works. So it's almost a perfect movie. I mean, it really is. Like, if you're going to talk about like, is there a movie that's a perfect movie? It's as close to perfect as you can get.
So we talked about.
Go ahead. I was going to say, and he wore that red puffer vest.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, I don't remember in the 80s. Was it red? Burgundy?
Red.
Orange.
Red.
Yeah. And I don't remember that being a thing in the 80s. Like I don't know. Did you guys remember that?
I had one.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It was just a vest, not a full coat, just the vest. I had one.
Best part. Okay.
So we talked about Stoltz. There were a lot of other actors. I had a video that did remarkably well, where I put together some clips from actors that auditioned to be in this.
That's cool.
And it's amazing. It was, I mean, of course, Spielberg. So of course, everybody with a name tried out for this film. And yet they picked some relatively unknowns, and they made some really, I could not have been better cast though. Really cool. Everybody wanted to be in it. The movie did remarkably well, but Chris said perfect movie. In my opinion, the 80s was filled with perfect movies. If what we're looking for is escapism in a world where we as kids grew up worried about the Cold War. I've said it before, kids have understandable fears today. They worry about violence in schools, and I don't try to play ours was better or ours was worse, but where they're worried about violence in each individual school, we truly believed the world was going to end. Yeah. I went to bed at night afraid that there would not be a tomorrow for any of us. And the 80s, I think, reflected that fear and gave us this escape where we went into this world where, here, the future's there and it's pretty cool.
Now, in this topic here, we Back to the Future, it could have, and I probably should have said at the beginning, broadly, you talked about 2 and 3. We could discuss any portion of any one of those. I think all 3 of them are iconic movies. I tend to like number 1 the best, but I think all 3 of them were iconic movies. And so if you have anything about any of them, the other ones, please, by all means.
I didn't have a favorite. I had a least favorite. The Western, I liked going into the 50s as a past, and I liked going into the future. I didn't like the Western one so much.
Yeah.
I didn't like 2 because as much as I love seeing Flea in anything, it was so dark. And I felt like, listen, that's a Spielberg thing because Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was very dark compared to the first and the third. Yes. And the same goes for Back to the Future. I'm not sure what the deal is there, why he does a dark one and then comes back to more fun. But that was the one for me that didn't really resonate as well. I enjoyed it.
The one where when he changed the sports book that then the mother was like she was down and out, right? Sometimes I get the three of them
Well,
confused.
in the second one, she ends up marrying Biff. She ends up marrying Biff's.
Yes.
Who physically abuses her? Like it's like not even. I mean, it's dark.
And she has like prosthetic breasts.
Yeah, it's dark. It's dark. Do you know who was in the first one though at the arcade machine? In the diner?
Who?
From the Hobbit movie, right?
Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
Deep Impact.
Yeah, he was like that. That's we always talk about that too. Like the people you see in these 80s movies, they were just kind of getting their start.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember that scene. Christopher Lloyd. So we always talk makeup. And how old was Christopher Lloyd when he played Doc in the first movie?
Let me guess. He was 50 something.
46.
46. See, yeah, I know.
But listen, he looked older as Reverend Jim in Taxi, and that was like
you're preaching to the choir. I keep going back to the fact that damn they looked old or fuck I'm delusional. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question. We've got the rose among thorns here. Rochelle, you are maintaining this youthful appearance, but I think Chris and I are holding our own, but it could be delusional.
I could put
lipstick. It may be delusional for you. Speak for yourself.
Too, John. Lipstick does wonders, let me tell you.
Speak for yourself. Although you and I might look awkward with some bronzer. So
that's true.
All right. So I think we're at 15 minutes, right? We've done 15.
I guess. I don't want to move on. I want to just keep talking about Back to the Future.
Okay, talk about that. You do. Talk about Back.
I think it's AutoZone. If you go to AutoZone's website, they have a flux capacitor in their inventory.
Yes, it is AutoZone.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep, it's AutoZone. If you look up a certain part, it'll come up with a flux capacitor.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to write that down.
Happy birthday, life.
Happy birthday.
The other thing I absolutely love, it was one of those things where I don't know that kids going to the movies today with streaming, with everything, is it the event that it was? And our movies helped foster the fact that it was an event. Mm-hmm. When it came out, we had waited for it. We were anticipating it. We were excited that it was coming out. And then it was an event to go see it. Yes. There was we can wait 2 weeks and it'll come out, on a streaming service, which has accelerated itself since COVID. It used to be people had to wait a little bit. Now, what are we laughing at?
My husband said he has a flux capacitor in his Fiat.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, and then stainless steel cars. We talk about the past being prologue. We have them back again now.
Yeah.
I think it's 10 times uglier than a DeLorean, but
at least you don't have a Fiero flux capacitor in your Fiero.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, that goes back to what we talk about where, the idea of all this convenience we have is really nice. And it is huge to have everything at your fingertips, but there is something to be said for, not always getting what you want when you want it. And then having to dedicate a certain time. John, you talk about this a lot. 8:00 on a Thursday night, it was the Cosby Show or whatever you were watching with your family. And you had to be in front of the TV at that time or you missed it. The Christmas specials, they came on once, maybe twice, and you better be in front of the TV to watch it at that time. And the same goes for now. They may have been at the box office in the movie theater for 52 weeks. But maybe still, you had to dedicate.
Unless you're like me, a kid who grew up in a small town, I had a theater that showed one movie every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, 4 nights a week. I could go to the neighboring city an hour away, but not when I was in middle school, really. My parents weren't going to take me an hour away to see a movie. So it really was see it or you're going to miss it. And Chris, you've spoken about how in 85 and 86 specifically, and I think Back to the Future was 85?
85, yeah.
The competition that year for movies, for screen time was insane.
Insane.
So you really did run a risk. If you didn't go see it when you could see it, you're not going to see it until it comes out at Blockbuster.
And that could have been a long time later because if it ran a long time, plus it had if you didn't have HBO, you were one of the broke kids, you know what I mean? You didn't have HBO, exactly, you know what I mean? You didn't have HBO, then you especially weren't going to see it because since they were big blockbusters, a lot of them weren't coming on the ABC movies. Those were the ones that were like maybe not quite so big blockbusters, but a big one like Back to the Future wasn't just shown on regular TV.
And the movie tickets were $2. Literally, if I had $3.50, I could go to the movie for $2. I could spend 75 cents on Pac-Man before the game started. or before the movie started. And then I had 75 cents left over for a box of Mike and Ike's. And that was good.
Yeah.
That was it.
Well, it is cost prohibitive now. I will admit, to go to the movies, you're spending big bucks to go. They're uncomfortable chairs. There is something to be said, but with the early, I'll pay $20 in my living room. I mean, I do,
They're either uncomfortable chairs or they're recliners, and I just spent $100 to join my family out for a nap.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't have the ushers anymore that used to shh.
Dude, do you remember the ushers?
Yeah.
I loved it. They're
With the
great. We should have them
flashlights?
back. Yes. It was perfect.
We'd sit there, and if we put our feet up, so it was like a dance. Your feet would go up, you're comfortable, you see the flashlight coming, your feet go down, the usher goes by, the feet go back up again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Dude, that was fun. I forgot about that moment. And like I said before, I can see myself sitting on the right-hand side of the Palace Theater, about halfway down. That's where our group would always sit. And it didn't really matter. I've said it before, small town growing up, if On Golden Pond was playing, we were there because it was just Friday nights were at the theater. That's what we did. But when it was something like this playing, it was just, then it was like, we're going Friday, we're going Saturday, we're going Sunday. And Friday, I might hang out with this group. Saturday, I might hang out with this group. We had eclectic friends. Not all our friends ran in the same group, especially, I think the three of us have talked about it. We had friends from different cliques. So I'd go with one clique on Thursday and a different clique on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you probably did all 3 nights when Beaches came in, didn't you? And the matinees.
Beaches, I was older, and I really discovered Beaches on my own. And I mentioned that was like a girlfriend forced you to watch movie. That's what you're missing.
Okay. But
when she forced you to watch it, what the hell? Hated.
What?
Oh, all I saw was Hellraiser's. Sometimes I try to keep up with the chat, and I saw the word Usher, anal. All I saw was Usher and anal. But there we go. I get it.
And don't forget too, a lot of these movies can be seen at the drive-ins, which was really fun.
Yeah.
There were still a lot of drive-ins left at that point in time. I know my town had one, the next town had one. In fact, there's still a drive-in near me. It probably the only one I can even think of within hundreds of miles. But the drive-in was another place, and that was also a meeting place of people. Go to the playground during the intermission portion. You see the second movie. Sometimes on the other screen behind you, there was something, different playing. You're watching it in silence. It was just a lot of fun.
Or I remember Lowe's in Webster, New York had like 9 or 10 different screens, and we'd go into one and then just movie hop.
Yeah. One more thing I want to go back to the Future before we move on real quick, because we talked about 1985 and what they got right and what they didn't get right. And, what Doc Brown thought about 1985. And I think this sums it up perfectly when he says, I'm sure in 1985, plutonium is available at every corner drugstore, but in 1955, it's a little hard to come by. I don't know. Like, that line for me was just perfect. And I think about what they pictured 2015 to look like and how very different it actually was from what they predicted. And, the same with plutonium on every
The future just didn't come to us as flashy as we thought it would be. It wasn't bubble cities in the Atlantic Ocean. It wasn't colonies on the moon. It wasn't flying cars. It was small changes that we didn't really anticipate. Yeah. The internet wasn't something, it didn't go in the direction we thought it was going to go. Yeah. Still technological advances, to be sure. Some of them we anticipated. I think AI was predicted in the 80s. But the rest of it,
War Games
didn't play out the way we thought.
War Games was all about AI, and that was 1983.
That was a good movie.
Do you want?
All right, so we talked about Back to the Future, all 3 of the movies, and how iconic they were. And now we're going to move to a movie that had a very large portion at the ending.
Is that the connection?
That's what you remember about the movie.
Michael J. Fox better endowed than I anticipated.
Boogie Nights. Listen, the casting, the everything, this movie, I absolutely loved Boogie Nights. William H. Macy, I thought, did an amazing job in this movie. Roller Girl, what's her name?
Heather Graham.
Heather Graham. I thought she was amazing.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
What's that?
Philip Seymour
Hoffman,
Man.
Marky Mark, as well as, even the one, William H. Macy's wife was an actual pornography star. I can't think of her name right now at the moment. I'm sure someone will actually know what that is in the
Burt Reynolds. I mean,
Yeah.
Burt Reynolds. Like,
I mean, this movie was, and it surprised you, I think, at every turn, and it just showed you the seediness, the glamour, the glitz, and then the seediness that came with that entire industry. And truly, that industry, we've talked about this before, and you guys threw me under the bus on this one. The industry really took off in the 70s with the advent of home video. And so that's when, in the 70s, I think, is when it really started, even though it's always been there. It's always been an industry, but so what are your thoughts, Marky Mark and his funky junk? And I'm thinking that movie, you're like, okay,
I remember everybody initially being like, wait, was that real?
Is that real? Is that a prosthetic?
That was like the question. Everyone's like, the internet wasn't so big that it was like immediate to let everybody know it was not real.
Yeah.
But that may have been the first Boogie Nights. Burt Reynolds hated doing Boogie Nights. He said
he did.
He was like that in real life and hated how he treated Sally Fields. He treated her like what? Like Marky Mark in the movie, or like Heather Graham in the movie?
No, he did say he didn't enjoy. He didn't. I can't remember if he didn't want to do it, but he ended up doing. I don't remember exactly like how the whole thing unfolded, but there is a story behind Burt Reynolds and Boogie Nights.
But I mean, so we look at the movie itself, but we can also look at the portrayal of what was the industry that was. I mean, think about it. VHS exploded onto the market, and there up to that point, you could get pornography, but it was literally reel to reel. I mean, that's what it existed previous to that. And I can't imagine the prep time you had to have in order to watch a naughty movie. It's like, let me go to the closet, pull out the machine. I gotta splice this.
Splice the tapes.
You're in exactly the moment you need to be in, and the film starts melting and doing that.
Janet's got the eggplants in the
But I mean, it's like, so then VHS came along, and that was a huge industry.
Yes.
And now it's changed again. The future is here. That's no longer a thing either.
Yeah, no.
But Boogie Nights, I mean, look, it didn't. I mean, I think it was very like honest and real about the industry and the people in it, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, what happened with him, and was it William H. Macy as well? Like there was a lot of death and destruction and drugs and all kinds of stuff. And they didn't hide from it. It wasn't, they weren't putting that movie out there to say, look at this industry. They were saying, this is what happens. This is what's going on here. And that's why I think, like, when I look at Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, like, he's just such a great actor. And watching that movie, it's funny to say, like, you to say Boogie Nights, and I felt for someone in that movie, but I did for him, like his character, and wanting so much to be who he wasn't, but the type of person who would end up potentially in that industry. I don't know about today, but certainly at the time. And a great soundtrack, by the way. Another great soundtrack. Any soundtrack with KC and the Sunshine Band.
Yes, I forgot about that. I mean, they definitely had great music, and that I can't think of all the songs in it, but Casey and the
there was a lot of, they had the Hustler soundtrack. I mean, it was like the song from it was disco. There was so much disco. It leaned into the 70s hard. We had scenes from the discotheques.
That's what she said.
True. I can't remember too many movies that touched this topic. No pun intended. And they did it in a way that parts of it were funny, parts of it were really dark, parts of it were heartwarming. But it's something the 80s and 90s did. They found a way to talk about things like the sex trade, or, I mean, look, Pretty Woman. I've joked about a hooker with a heart. They touched on things, and you're like, wow, I didn't see it that way, but they went that direction.
Well,
the woman who was the porn star, she was in a circle, and William H. Macy came in, and she was getting banged in the middle of the circle. And then she looks up and she says to her husband, she's like, honey, you're embarrassing me, because he wanted her to stop. And that line right there in that movie, it
In
just,
that moment.
at that moment, it kind of just makes you think, like, what would be going through the minds of the people who are literally in this industry. I don't know, because that she was embarrassed not to be circle banging, what, I don't know what you call it. I don't know what you call it. Okay, I'm
What
not,
is happening
not
right now?
there. All right, but that whole thing. I loved how they portrayed that. It looked like it was going to be glamorous, but no, it's not.
I mean, I can't imagine anybody. Well, I guess it depending on what direction, where your life is prior, they can sell glamour. I guess for those of us that aren't. I mean, look, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say it's shocking me that somebody would think that a career in that genre would be glamorous, but it depends on where they pluck you from before you get to that.
I suppose so.
Somebody Hellraiser mentioned the John Holmes and the going on a coke bender and killing a bunch of people, and that was in the Wonderland Murders is actually on Amazon Prime. There's a documentary exactly about that. It's insane, and it was like back in 1981. So if you want to learn a little bit more about a real Boogie Nights thing going on, that documentary is insane. But I'll tell you, there is a movie in 2004 that came out that touched on it a little bit lighter, and that was The Girl Next Door. If you ever saw that, it's actually a funny movie with Alicia Cuthbert. And am I missing something?
I don't know what that means, but I can.
The term you were looking for, I guess, when you're like, I don't know what to call it, when she was circle banged, I guess it may be referred to as a daisy chain.
I guess.
But all I'm doing is seeing the little daisy chains that girls would put in their hair and stuff, and I'm like,
I can envision what the words mean together now. Okay, but but I've never heard that term. So yeah, Dirk Diggler was definitely a name, and I always thought the movie was kind of fashioned after the story of John Holmes in a way. That it was pulled off the streets, drugs, and things like that.
Giving, thank you so much. I appreciate that comment. We all do.
Oh, I did see actually that we were talking about Burt Reynolds, that he actually fired his agent after he saw the cut for recommending
wow.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure this is one of those movies that could have gone a lot of different directions, and there's probably a lot of editing that went on and choices made editorially on how they were going to show things. Because like I said, there was so many segments in it that all evoked different emotions. Like we'd laugh and we'd be kind of like at the end, what happened to Mark Wahlberg's character? At the end, he was hustling. He had, the drugs had taken their toll, and he couldn't even get his number one asset to work, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely in terms of the 90s. I mean, I think if you look back at the decade, it's one of the best films of the decade, and does exactly what it's supposed to do. You come out of there just kind of disturbed.
And there were a bunch of them that kind of pulled back the curtain in the 90s. So if the 80s, we talked about escapism and seeing these movies that got us away from these things, the 90s with movies like this, with Basketball Diaries was another one I remember. They kind of like pulled back the curtain and showed what life that most of us sitting in suburbia or in our small towns or in our middle class lives would really have no idea what that might look like. And all of a sudden, you're seeing another side to the world, and you're seeing the porn industry, the sex trade, the prostitution, the drugs. A lot of movies in the 90s basically took our 80s era after school specials and hyped them up, and they're like, here, we're going to refeed you the same shit you watch as a kid in the 80s, but now we're going to peel back the niceness and really show you what it was.
Yeah, I like that comment, John. I really do.
I like that comment, John.
No, I mean, I think you said that very perfectly, that it peeled back another layer and gave us something. It's like the movies graduated in age with us. They graduated from being the teen movies to the more seriousness.
I know John won't like it because I do. What, I've got something personal against you, D? I personally didn't see Wicked. My wife took the daughters out for a girls' night. But listen, I've got a soft side. I told you I loved beaches. Wicked can't be that far a stretch.
Yeah, William H. Macy's wife is Felicity Huffman. Yeah,
And
I did know that one.
She got in a little bit of trouble recently.
Yeah, is she out? She had to go. She had to do a little bit of time, right?
Yeah.
For a college scam for
Of all things,
kids. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're at 40 minutes. What do you think?
We can move on to the last segment.
I figured we're going to be on this one for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and we're going to start talking about game shows, but well, I'll tell you in a second. Game shows. I think so far we've talked about Back to the Future, any of the Back to the Future movies. For those of you just joining us, then we talked about Boogie Nights. And now we're going to talk about game shows. And I think game shows were one of the iconic, Campbell's Soup and Grandma's Afghan, we remember sitting and watching these. Now, I don't know if I watched most of my game shows in the summer or if I was just sick a lot, because I remember feeling like I watched all the game shows and I loved them. I loved the old ones. I loved the I don't even know when they died out, but it feels like the 70s, like late 60s, 70s, 80s were like the heyday of game shows. And that's how it feels to me.
90s kind of fell off. 2000s with like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire saw a resurgence. Yeah. All of a sudden they were cool again. And like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you can credit for really having like this explosion of it. All of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we forgot about these. And for a while, it was running multiple nights a week. That's how popular it was, that the network put it on more than one night a week. I remember game shows. I remember the ones in the morning, which was My Price is Right, Joker's Wild, Sale of the Century. And then I remember my early evening ones, which was Match Game. And that would change with the year. Match Game 75, 76, 77, Hollywood Squares. Family Feud. So there was like the morning ones, and then there was the early evening ones.
Press Your Luck.
Yeah,
no whammies.
Loved it, but I forgot about Sale of the Century. I loved that show. Loved that one. And if you ever go back and look at some of the clips from like old school, remember on Wheel of Fortune? That was one of the evening game shows. Remember on Wheel of Fortune when they would actually go around and buy the items and stuff?
Ridiculously inflated prices. So
right. And then
you'd have like $3,000. You're like, for $3,000, Pat, I'll take the grandfather clock. and then you're like, and I'll take the rest in a gift certificate. And I never knew what the hell that gift certificate was supposed to do.
The dating game. Oh my god.
Dating game. I didn't think of that as a game show, but it was.
Yeah, and it had
no, it 100% was, but
and there was a serial killer.
People were the prizes.
Yes, there was. I did know that.
There was a serial killer on it, so that was crazy.
There was a serial killer on it. Tom Selleck was on it. They hired actors and aspiring models all the time. Yeah, it wasn't just people. They actually went to agents and got people on that show. That was marketed well. Sale of the Century, I remember, just because. So a small connection between game shows and Boogie Nights is that our eye candy back in the 80s wasn't as easy to find as it is today. Young boys predominantly would save things like their mother's JCPenney catalog in order to glance at certain sections. Sale of the Century always had swimsuit models. They're like, oh, look, we're giving away a ski-doo. But you didn't look at the ski-doo. There was the hot model in the bikini. I remember that's why I would watch Sale of the Century.
But Barker's Beauties too.
Barker's Beauties, but they at least Barker's Beauties were like the Playboy version. They were the classy version. Yeah. Sale of the Century is more penthouse. They were more scantily clothed.
Oh, someone mentioned Joker's Wild. I remember that one too. That one was an awesome one.
Joker.
Yeah, Joker's Wild. This is making me just like, I don't know. It's like, it's bringing me back again. We could talk about to my family room when I was a kid and the board games, like sitting on the floor playing the board games, but watching the game shows. I mean, I think it was John mentioned before, Shell, Campbell's Soup and the Afghan. blanket or whatever that my grandmother would sew, which she did. But it just, I don't know. It's like comfort food.
Mhm.
The game shows were like comfort food for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there's a game show network now, and you can see all these game shows on that. It's not the same
No.
because they're all on one after the other, and you can watch hours upon hours upon hours, 24 hours a day. It's not the same. Again, it goes back to, we had an hour of this in the evening, maybe with two of them, and then some in the morning, but it was limited and it was special, and it was just a small piece of the it was a small piece of the viewing schedule that was carved out for that time. Game shows would be on after the news, but before your nightly programming would be on. It was always like 7 to 8 Eastern time for me, or in the morning.
Someone mentioned Hollywood Squares, and I do want to say today, because I happen to be looking up some things in order to do my research for this. Today would have been Betty White's birthday. She was actually born in, she would have been 102, I think it would have been this year, because I think we lost her just shy of her. She was 99, and we lost her over 2 years ago. But she was amazing on, we forget that the celebrities, how Chris, you always talk about the music, and everybody wanted to be on the music for this particular movie. They wanted to be on the soundtrack. It was like there was like these group of celebrities that were always on some of these game shows as the celebrity guest, and it was like they wanted to be on there.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you brought up the news after the news, because the game show hosts were as big as national news anchors or bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm imagining that was probably a job that a lot of people were aspiring to in the 70s and 80s out in Hollywood. Like, this is an opportunity for me to, maybe I'm not going to be, the Hollywood actor, but if I can land a game show host and the game show takes off, I'm good. I'm good.
And there were permanent spots. If you looked at Match Game before Family Feud, Richard Dawson had his spot on that, and he was there every week. Fannie Flagg was there. There more than a few of them that were always there. There was the Center Square on Hollywood Square, where you would book by contract. That was a gig. And your contract would stipulate, all right, I'm going to be the Center Square on Hollywood Squares for 4 weeks, for 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That was a coveted role,
Mm-hmm.
just as much as a time on a sitcom would be as a special guest star.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it got us normal people, number one, to dream about making money. So it was fun to be able to imagine, if I can get on the show, maybe I'll win a lot of money. Maybe I'll win these amazing prizes, not understanding the tax situation that came to plague more than a few people. And if you were on Match Game, or if you were on Pyramid, you got to hobnob with some celebrities for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody mentioned the Gong Show, which the original American Idol, or whatever. Yeah. That's not even American Idol. That's more like America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
And the Gong Show.
Yeah.
And the Gong Show is awesome. I remember watching it with my dad and loving it. It's not exactly a game show, but more of a variety show.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
It was like the Muppets, but it was a variety show.
It was insane. The stuff the people that came on there, crazy people. Yeah.
I'd forgotten about Tic Tac Dough.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Good
and
one.
I mean, and there were these smart game shows, right, where you had to know something. And then there was like the ones with the whammy where you didn't have to know a damn thing. You just get
no whammies.
Like I said, I'd love to be on a game show. Would you like to be on Jeopardy? No, not Jeopardy.
No. Oh, because for the audience here, John and Chris and they were doing an 80s tryout for like 80s trivia to go and be on Jeopardy, and you had to have a team. So we registered, we put together this team. We're like, okay, the three of us, we know our stuff. We're going to go back there. We're going to take this quiz. So they give us the sample quiz online for you to pass so that maybe you could get on Jeopardy as a team. Let me tell you something. We were all like, yeah, we're not getting on Jeopardy.
Because
I did embarrassingly badly.
Same.
It was very little pop culture.
Yeah.
It was
different.
It was, whoever wrote the test was like, so on January 3rd, 1987, I went out with a girl. What movie did we see and what was her name? Yeah. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. It was like in June of 1983, this country annexed by XYZ invaded this country over blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what?
I don't
Come on,
know.
like, who started Ferris Bueller?
Where's the Pee Wee Herman trivia? Where's who was on the Breakfast Club?
Yeah, that's what I was expecting. And when we took this quiz, let me tell you something. If any of you took that quiz, you know exactly what we're talking about.
It was like Mr. Hand wrote all the questions.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal.
Well, even MTV had a game show called Remote Control. I remember that.
Right. Yeah,
they did.
I loved for me, even as a young kid, I didn't get all the jokes, but number one, game shows were really inclusive. You know, somebody mentioned, what was his name? He played on Bewitched, and was center. Paul Lynde. Paul Lynde was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
He made jokes which just it was an era where you didn't necessarily come out of the closet, but you could leave the door wide open and it was all right.
Mm-hmm.
The one guy on Match Game, all the way to the right. What the hell was his name?
Oh, John J.
You're
Bullock?
right.
John J. Bullock?
No, not John J. Bullock. That was later, yes. But the door was wide open. Wide open. They made comments. They made jokes. Everybody thought it was okay. It's like that part of being a Gen X kid where our kids now come to us and say, well, you guys weren't as inclusive as we were. And we answer back, yeah, we were. Yeah. We just didn't make a big deal out of it. And it's okay that you kids choose to. I'm not judging. But don't judge us and say we weren't inclusive. We just didn't care. It's like, you're funny.
That's interesting. You mentioned Hollywood Squares, because now that I think about it, Hollywood Squares was kind of like a lot of like the animated kids movies, the Disney movies and stuff, where the adult humor was there. The kids were watching. It went right over your head.
Yeah.
The adults, they had the humor for the adults. The kids enjoyed it because of whatever was going on with the movement and everything. But it was very similar.
Looking on Google. Everybody in our comments is answering for me. I should have known just to wait. Charles Nelson Riley. Dude, the guy was hilarious.
Yes, he was.
Because they would ask these questions that just begged for double entendres. They would ask these questions that were screaming for euphemisms, and they were more than happy to hand them out. It was hilarious, and it was raunchy. And they were drunk. They were literally drinking right there. They would pull up their glass of scotch and pound it as we were all watching. It was awesome. It was politically incorrect. It was hilarious. And I loved even as a kid, I loved every second of it. I need to go back and watch some old episodes. I'll probably appreciate it even more today.
I think that's a show that they could do again. I think
they'd be afraid of getting in trouble.
I don't know, man. I think
we're leaning back towards that direction, and that's not a political comment. I'm not saying because of politics. I'm saying just a societal shift is we're all kind of, no matter where you are politically, we're all kind of getting sick of the over political correction. We don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to be mean people. We don't want to, but funny is funny.
Could you imagine 9 comedians on that show right now?
I think, could you imagine 9 content creators? Let's go B-level with it. I would do that show in a flat second.
I would too. I would absolutely do it. I think it would like the 3 of us. We
put it on YouTube. Get 9 of us, switch people out. Who else is watching? Sherry Dindal, are you watching? We could put some people with some off color. We could make it happen.
We could make it happen. I think it would be hilarious just to respond to some of that. Yeah. And before we move, I have a little surprise for you.
Uh-oh.
And it's on my paper right here.
I couldn't see it.
Yeah, you're not supposed to see it because
your surprise is on the paper.
My surprise is on
which segment does surprise lean towards? Because if it's Boogie Nights, maybe I should put you on a 9-second delay.
No, my surprise for you is because since we were talking about game shows and we got a little bit out of our system, I have a game show for you. Since our podcast is like a show, I thought, and you mentioned that we should do a Hollywood Squares. And so I thought, well, I'm going to play game show host here. I did not bring my, the pointy microphone that was straight up and down. So
that was Gene, and Bob Barker had one too. Mm-hmm. What was Gene's last name?
Gene, the dancing machine?
Gene from Match Game. Gene. And they were all they were all such sexist pigs.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. It was, I get that could be problematic to kids. My daughter, my 21-year-old, saw Richard Dawson kissing everyone, all the women on
Family Feud.
Family Feud. She's like, how did you guys allow that? I'm like, he wasn't kissing me. I didn't have to allow it, but anybody that got on, it always takes two to kiss. I'm like, nobody was screaming, don't touch me. And
Nobody
if
said
they
no.
did, I guess it would have been fine. It wasn't a big deal.
No. But I have a game show for you that I have.
I want to play.
Okay, let's
Can
do
I
it.
win?
Like a speed round. Here, I'm going to give you the rules. It is Chris versus John.
Yes.
Versus the audience. The audience, since
Gene Rayburn.
a little time to type, okay? We're going to see if the audience can also be a part of this. And I am going to have to put on my
Oh my God.
my cheaters. My cheaters. All right. So are you ready for your game show?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give you some questions and I'm going to have you complete the rest of the phrases. The game show is about all of the most famous jingles and slogans and
Do we just shout out the answers? What do we do?
everything Gen X, whoever gets it first gets the point. Okay. I don't know if I could watch both the audience and the
well, we have to slow down to let them type, so we
Yeah.
can't yell it immediately. I think we're
Right.
making too much of this. It's all for fun anyway.
It's all for fun. It's all for fun. Okay. So we'll do some easy ones and then we'll do some hard ones. You ready?
Okay.
Kind of like we did Seinfeld.
So are we saying something first or are we waiting?
You're
Nah, I would just yell it out, and then an audience just write it out too, and we'll just
write
see
it
if we.
out. Or
Okay.
think of it in your head, whatever it may be. Since it's a game show, we're going to do a game show. And a bonus point if you sing it. Okay?
I was thinking Hot Librarian
Minutes?
Con, but it works too.
All right. What would you do?
For a Klondike bar.
2 points for John.
Oh, we started. Okay, sorry. Shit. Sorry.
Took me a minute too. I'm like, wait a minute, she started.
Give your breath.
Give your breath.
Give your
Give your
breath.
breath.
Give your breath.
It's got to be something with Mentos. Give your breath.
Freshen up gum. Is it that stuff with the gross
Audience?
stuff that would squish in your mouth?
Audience, even if you could just say something.
They say it. Give your breath. It. Give your breath.
Well, no, it's
Freshness
probably
with Big Red.
Give your breath long lasting freshness.
Freshness with Big
with
Red.
Big Red. Okay, John gets a half a point. All right. Diamonds.
Our girl's best friend.
Yeah, they get, yeah, but or forever, either one. All right, John, Chris, jump in. Feel free to jump in anytime here.
I'm not going to be good at this.
Taste,
Sorry?
taste.
Great. Less filling.
Oh, that would work. But it's I guess that would work. I had taste the rainbow. Give me a break.
Dude.
Give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
Yay! Silly
I watched
rabbit.
a lot of TV.
Silly rabbit.
Tricks are for
Kids
kids.
are for kids.
I'm giving it to I'm giving it to Chris just because.
He doesn't need charity. I got it first.
If you dare.
Dare wear short shorts, nair with short shorts.
Yep, that is John.
You did watch a lot of
That's really
TV.
good.
I watched a lot of
You're
TV.
like that kid in that show on HBO.
To be fair, I have about a 9 video series that's just 70s and 80s commercials.
Yeah.
I am
Right.
stuck.
On Band-Aid brand, because Band-Aid stuck on me.
Man, John's crushing this. Only you.
Can prevent forest fires.
Forest fires, yeah.
I'll give you both a point on that one. Come on, Chris. This is just for you. John, plug your ears. Bud?
Light.
No. Bud? Think famous.
Think famous? Hold on, let's
Yes.
see. Hold on. Let's give the audience. Bud. Nightlife says slow down.
Slow down. Okay.
Bud. Is it the frogs? Ribbit.
Bud.
Bud famous. Bud.
Prevent LA fires. I see that. Can't type fast enough. Wise.
Is it the frogs?
Yes,
So it is the frogs.
It's the frogs. So
Yeah.
Wirehead got it there with and Ribbit. Kristen got it.
I said ribbit.
You did. I'm giving it to the audience. My game. Okay. Here's an easy one. The best part.
Of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
This one's a hard one. Stop the...
Insanity.
Not insanity.
Susan Powder. Stop the insanity. Infomercial.
I thought it was madness.
No, it was insanity.
It was insanity? I have
Yeah.
madness with that. And it was Susan Powder. That's who I was thinking of. Oh, it's
Yeah.
insanity.
Stop the insanity.
All right.
Don't question me.
The Incredible.
Edible egg.
Egg.
One for you. To all beef.
Patty special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on sesame seed bun.
Big Mac.
Jesus.
Filet of fish, quarter pounder French fries, icy Coke stick, shake sundaes, and apple pies.
I thought, I mean, I was not in front of the TV as much as you, and I thought I was in front of it.
John, don't listen to this one. This one's just for Chris. I don't want to grow up.
I'm a Toys R Us kid.
Yes. You want to know what comes between
Me and my Calvin Klein jeans? Absolutely.
nothing.
And how old was she when she did that ad?
Oh, like 16.
16.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Kind
do
of
you guys-
disgusting.
This one might be regional. 800-588-2300.
Empire.
Empire.
Clap.
Penicillin.
Clap off.
Chris,
Clap on, clap off.
the clapper.
Did you hear me? Did you hear my answer? I don't get any points.
What'd you say? Clap?
Penicillin.
I'm not familiar, John. Are you?
No.
Okay. See, everybody got John, nothing. Okay. Wherever I go.
Oh, wherever. Tootsie Roll. I become whatever I go, whatever I see becomes a Tootsie Roll to me.
No, that's not.
That's one.
That's
No,
not
which
what
one are
I
you
was
thinking?
of, but
Is it the other candy? Oh, wait.
it's not a candy.
Oh, it's not? Then I have no idea.
Wherever I go, he goes. Anybody? Audience? My buddy. Do you remember my buddy?
I do. I didn't remember the wherever I go.
Right.
Yeah, Tootsie Roll. I'm with you, Todd.
Okay.
Wherever I go, whatever I see becomes a Tootsie Roll to me.
When you care enough.
To
It's on the very best.
Ah, yes. Sweet dreams you can't resist.
NESTLES.
Hey, Chris got it.
I'm pretty sure that was when I went to see Billy Idol. Faith No More opened up for Billy Idol in 1989 or 1990, and they actually did that jingle because one of the guys in the band actually was part of that jingle when they were trying to make money to get the studio time.
Really?
Yeah.
So, were you in the video we made making fun of that commercial?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah. I was in that one. You're not fully clean.
Until you're zestfully clean. Unless you're zestfully clean.
That's right.
Zestfully clean.
Chris, you should get this one real quick. You've said it before. Yo quiero.
What?
Yo
Taco
quiero.
Bell.
Oh, yeah. Well, Taco Bell. Yeah.
Yo quiero Taco Bell. All right.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
All right. So anyway, I have a ton of them. We don't have to continue.
Calgon.
I have I wrote out 50 of them.
Oh
Calgon.
my God.
Calgon,
Take me away.
Well,
Yeah.
this is fun. This is fun. I feel like we should do this every week before we do the connection. We should just do something different, like maybe it's music lyrics or whatever. But whoever the host is, just come up with 10.
Here's the other one. I want my baby back, baby back.
Baby back. Want my baby back,
Yeah.
back ribs. Chilies.
Pardon me.
Do you have any Grey Poupon?
Do you have any Grey Poupon? Most of these are very, very 80s too. You know, give a hoot.
Don't pollute.
Butter.
Parquet.
Parquet. Uh-oh.
Spaghettios.
SpaghettiOs. I love that one's one of my favorites.
And they entered our lexicon is the thing. So they started out as ads, and we've talked about it before, and we've done commercials as as a topic on their own, because to me, it's amazing that we started introducing them into our speech with our friends. We all yelled, "Where's the beef?" You know, the Connect Four, pretty sneaky, sis. You sunk my battleship. It's all that stuff. Just started becoming things we'd say because we were in front of the TV. Some of us apparently more than others. But to be fair, this is a shtick for me. So I've had to do research on this. I've got video after video that is nothing but these commercials back to back. So that's part of why I know so much of this. It's not just that I was a waste of life in front of the although to be fair, I probably knew this stuff anyway. You know, I was the kid that wanted the Chuck Wagon for Christmas. I thought it was a real toy.
Yeah.
I mean, if we do movie quotes or lyrics for music, I'll be a little better, I think.
Yeah, well, I just thought it would be fun to end a game show segment with an actual game show.
I'm overly competitive. We've talked about the story, how I was, they changed a game night to a night that I worked and then lied to me, and my friends told me they'd canceled it.
We're going to, audience, who should be the winner here? Should it be John?
Are you kidding me?
Should it be? We're Gen X. The rules of there's no participate. I won.
Yeah.
There's no participation points in Gen X. John wins. And audience, I'm sorry, there isn't a better way to type in. You know, we would have, I think, just so much silent time here as we're waiting for everybody to type in. But I just thought it would be, maybe we'll someday have the technology where our audience can actually be a part of this. Or we'll visit a city near you where you can actually really be a part of a show with us, right?
It just goes to show that everything we talk about, though, and the whole point of this show, and we were talking before we joined all of you guys. I love this show. I love this show because it's something I would watch if I wasn't on it. I love the hidden connection. I love the conversations. I love the sharing of shared experiences and memories. And we all grew up in this magical time. The 40s and the 50s, TV was just getting started. We were like the golden era of television programming. And now we've talked about it. It's self-curated. It's people creating their own playlists, watching on their own time, making their own decisions, or at least thinking they're making their own decisions. We grew up in the absolute golden era, platinum era, I guess I should say, of television. And that includes the commercials and stuff. And beyond television, pop culture. Platinum era of pop culture. Because we all watch the same things, listen to the same stuff, and experience the same stuff.
And if you're Gen X, you can remember all the words to some of the Big Red commercial, but sometimes you can't remember like where you put your glasses or why you walked into a room. You know, I mean,
and the things we didn't get, we didn't hear it. I just got 4 million views on a video where all I'm doing is listening to the Juicy Fruit commercial jingle. Slip it out. No, take a sniff, pull it out. The taste is going to move you when you pop it in your mouth.
It sounds like a Poison or some like Quiet Riot song or something.
I mean, seriously, though, you can't tell me the person that wrote it didn't know that there were two ways to take that. And that was our childhood in a nutshell, no pun intended.
They knew it.
Reach out and touch someone.
Yeah.
AT&T. Yes, absolutely. I had that one on the list too. So
reach out and touch someone.
Now, you guys have we have done all of our topics now. We're running pretty good on time. We're running pretty good on time. We did Back to the Future, we did Boogie Nights, and then we did game shows, and we had our own little version of a game show. And I'm wondering if anybody knows the connection that is the hidden connection connecting all three of these things together.
I thought I knew it initially, but I only thought I knew it because I invented one of our connections. And then I'm like, wait, we're not talking about that. So that's not it. So I'm not quite there.
It was.
For some reason, I thought our third connection was Family Ties. And then I'm like, well, it's Michael J. Fox. And I'm like, wait, we're not talking about Family Ties. Where in my head did I get Family Ties?
Yeah, no.
I just created my own show in my head and went with it. So Boogie Nights, game shows, and Back to the Future. Now, I know Shell well enough that she very rarely says things without there being a meaning to it, especially if she repeats it. And when we were talking about Back to the Future, the first episode, she kept coaching us along and saying, guys, it's broader. It could be any of the movies. It could be 1, 2, or 3. And then she's like, which was your favorite? And she tried to expand our conversation to go beyond Back to the Future 1. So my guess is whatever this connection is, it's more tightly or closely related to one of the other two, not so much the first movie. Just
Chris?
based on the way your poker face fails you sometimes.
It's not going to fail me this time because I'll be honest with you. I already said the connection.
Huh?
Yeah, I gave it to you.
Come on, people. What do you got?
I gave it to you. I already said the connection. That's not
Is that you?
No. Oh, yes, it was.
That's always you. So Chanel said the connection. The connection is my buddy.
No.
I don't know. That's what Doreen said.
Nope.
The dating game or the newlywed game?
It's not a game show specifically.
Said game day shows. Chris, anything, buddy?
I got nothing.
All right, let me. I said it in I said it here.
Oh, so in one of your speed rounds of the 2,000 things you said in a minute, somewhere in there.
I thought this would actually be something that you went, oh, I got it now.
Big Red, Folgers. So Michael J. Fox did commercials. I thought of that, but again, that's commercials I got away from the game show, so that's not it. But it could be a product that I don't know.
Okay, so what did when in Back to the Future, when she sees his underwear?
Calvin Klein.
Who was one of the most famous early Calvin Klein ad models?
Brooke Shields.
Besides Brooke Shields?
Marky Mark.
Marky Mark.
Boogie Nights.
How is he in Back to the Future?
Because the Calvin Klein underwear.
Calvin Klein.
And he likes watching game shows.
And no. And I made a game show that included the actual saying for "Nothing comes between me and my Calvins."
But he didn't say that.
Yes, I did. I said nothing comes between me and my Calvins. Calvin
He
Klein.
wasn't part of that campaign.
Marty McFly, Calvin Klein.
Right.
Dirk Diggler, Marky Mark was a top model for Calvin Klein. And we did a game show where I gave
Right. But so you doing the game show and including the Calvin Klein commercial is what tied it all together to game shows?
Yes.
You're a fucking cheater.
I am not a cheater. I gave it to you. I gave it to you straight up on a platter. I thought it would be too easy for you. I thought with Marky Mark and Calvin Klein, I thought you would connect those.
But he wasn't in a game show.
No, but I thought you would connect the two of those to Calvin Klein. And then when you heard Calvin Klein mentioned in the thing.
So if you didn't play the game show with us, the third connection wouldn't have worked.
But there
You
would
cheated.
be a reason. Yeah.
You cheated.
You're
You're a cheater. Cheater, pumpkin eater.
Oh, God.
I love the topics. I think you played fast and loose a la Rochelle style with the connection again.
I thought it would be a fun way for you guys to I really thought when I said the Calvin Klein thing that it was going to click for you, that you were going to think Marky Mark in the famous Calvin Klein ads. Yes, Calvin Klein is the connection.
If ads was your third connection, yeah, I would have been like, oh, that's a great way to bring ads in. But that wasn't the third connection. Game shows was.
Because I made a game show out of it. Maybe I should have said ads. If I said ads, she would. I'm not. I'm drinking my LaCroix.
Yeah, we got a nay. We got a way off, Rochelle. We've got a she's reaching.
I don't know. I wanted the last one to be something different. Just something different.
I loved all three topics. I could care less if it was fair or not. I really don't care. We've talked about it. The connection is the least important part of the show.
Well, and to go to Calvin Klein. Calvin Klein was actually a staple in our generation of the 80s. you had to be dressed a certain way. And I really wanted to bring up this topic. You had to be dressed a certain way. You had to have all the right clothes. You'd have your Jordaches, your Calvin Kleins. And if you didn't, your Gloria Vanderbilts or whatever it was. I wanted to put Brooke Shields as one of the connections, that Brooke Shields would be there. I did mention her a couple of times. We did mention her. Yeah. I did mention
Dude,
her.
Chris, you've got to be enjoying this. We usually drag you through the mud.
Yeah. Well, I don't get dragged through on my connections usually.
Never on your connections.
But in the 80s, that Calvin Klein is when we got like the CK1.
Where does the game show fit? People are still asking.
Wait, is it Calvin Klein? That's the connection?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Marky Mark is the connection.
No, it's Calvin Klein.
I thought it was Marky Mark. Okay, Calvin Klein. All right.
So how do you connect Calvin?
Marty McFly. She called him Calvin
She
Klein.
called him Calvin Klein.
Okay, right.
Right. I thought that would literally, in your brain, somebody would mention the Calvin Klein.
I think, listen, in all honesty, I think the first two, to be honest, like Back to the Future and Boogie Nights, I can see it because you've got Calvin Klein. You call it Calvin Klein. You got Marky Mark, one of the premier Calvin Klein models, being the star. So those two get it for me. That game show is where I got lost.
Me too.
I guess I should have said ads, but I didn't want. Then I thought I would throw it all out. I probably should have said ad slogans. But then,
and then we could have had a game show. Regardless.
Obsession.
Regardless.
Yeah.
If I would have said ad slogans, then I thought I was giving it away too much.
I wouldn't have gotten it. Not right away, anyway.
Okay.
Nah.
Yeah, I mean,
Even with Speak the Text, I got a snowball chance in hell of getting that. Oh my God. But now that you bring it up, we can take a minute and talk about, wait, I'm still don't know who the connection is. Is it Marky or is it Calvin Klein? Okay.
Calvin Klein.
So how about Calvin Klein? So Calvin Klein wasn't just the clothes though. And talk about something that went, so I would say 80s and then in the 90s, but it went from being like up front. Mm-hmm. Calvin Klein jeans became a big deal. I remember Calvin Klein fragrance became a big deal. Yep. But then in the 90s, it all of a sudden went underground. It went underwear. And it was like what we were wearing under it. Now, for women, that was always like a big deal, I think. Women wearing, they knew what it was they were purchasing for their underwear. It was a big deal. Guys, Fruit of the Loom, boxer shorts, what we wore under our jeans, really, Chris, back me up, not much of an afterthought. We didn't really think about it much. And then the waistband through Calvin Klein, the waistband became everything. Mm-hmm. And wearing the jeans just low enough so that could be seen. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they captured a market that didn't exist before. And Calvin Klein's on that.
Skin tight. I mean, that's skin tight jeans. I don't know if Calvin Klein started it. I mean, they were big in the 70s too. I know that. But really
because I didn't even think about it. Like I thought about what I wore underneath when I was small enough to wear underoos.
Yes.
And then I didn't care for a while, years or so.
Yeah.
And then I started caring again. It's probably because of Calvin Klein. I
know it is for me. Yeah. Because I'm not trying to be gross or something. Even when what you wear underneath did kind of start mattering, it still didn't matter. Like there was no person I ever dated that's like, they might have had preference. Oh, I'd prefer you in boxers over briefs, but what type I was wearing, whether it was Hanes, didn't even. And then all of a sudden I remember I had girlfriends that'd be like, oh, I bought you some, and it would be Calvin Klein. It would be Joe Boxer was another big one.
Yeah.
Joe Boxer was a big one for me. All of a sudden it mattered. And that was a shift that I didn't realize. Like, Joe, this is the first time I've ever thought about it, but it was a major shift.
Mm-hmm. So and having all the fashion sense of the perfumes, they still sell some of them. Obsession, I think they still sell. I don't know if they still sell
CK1.
CK1, yeah.
It was the first unisex perfume. Cologne. I don't even know what you call it. You think of the Dracar Noir and Cool Water and all those things and all the women's perfumes. We've done these things before. Some of these brands still stand up today. And
and to your point, so does the CK we talked about that. I said that getting the center square on whatchamacallit on the game show was a contracted thing. It was a gig you aspired to. Getting the part of Dirk Diggler was a gig you would have aspired to. That movie had, you wanted to get into that movie, you wanted to get into these game shows, and you wanted to have to be the Calvin Klein guy. That was a new thing. Mark Wahlberg getting that was new, and it continues to this day. They've updated that person. He gets his huge billboard out on Times Square, whoever it is, and that's become a thing. So there's another connection there. That is a coveted stepping stone to a career.
Yeah. Kate Moss was big
Yep.
back in the day, a supermodel, and she was one. There was a whole lot of people I wanted to mention in this, but then I thought maybe that too would give it away. Brooke Shields being one of them. I mean, Brooke Shields was the first most iconic ad, and she's the one that said, you know, what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing. And she was just a young girl, and she had just gotten off doing some very controversial films. And then I didn't want to mention her because I didn't want to mention those controversial films though either, because I didn't want to get into a discussion about Blue Lagoon. Love that movie, but you know, Pretty Baby, Blue Lagoon, some ads and things, you know, different things like that. And you know, I just didn't want to put her in it as well.
Well, and then there's the whole, I remember some in the comments now I'm reading, some people are like briefs should be outlawed. Other people are going the other way. But it used to be this whole boxers or briefs. Remember, that was like a question. They even asked Bill Clinton when Bill Clinton was interviewed on MTV News. They had the town hall. Infamously, he was asked boxers or briefs. And you either wore one or the other. And then here comes Calvin Klein in the 90s, and they invented the boxer briefs. And now it was neither. It was both. And that became, I think, probably the best-selling option for most men, is somewhere in the middle, the hybrid.
Yeah.
John in the comments brought up the Seinfeld episode with Kramer where he went commando. Don't you see? I can actually see that scene.
The dude from the 70s show is a Calvin Klein model too. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and also the guy that does the bear. I can't think of his name right now.
He does the bear?
The show, The Bear. And he also did with William H. Macy.
Never saw the show.
The other show where he was when William H. Macy was drunk. Everybody on here would know it. I can't think of the name of it at the moment, but
and for everybody, Janet's comments make a lot more sense if you realize he's on his wife's account. Janet's a guy.
Janet's a guy.
Well, he's a guy, so
he's a guy.
I would have known that one for State Farm. Well, he's a guy.
And you're still not out of the woods yet, Joe. They're still slamming you on this.
Honest to God, I seriously thought that if I said it, it would click. And then I thought I would give it away too much if I said ad slogans.
Listen, you distracted me with competition. As soon as the competition started, I couldn't even tell you what the 3 topics were. I want to win. I have a problem. What time is it? I think we are. 7 o'clock almost. We doubled the time today, guys.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, hey, John, do you want to kind of mention what we're, I know we mentioned it before, but everything that's going on that we're talking about?
So on the backside of things, we are definitely talking about taking the show on the road. I kind of mentioned throughout this episode that these have become 2 of the people that I love spending time with. And I've got close personal friends that I grew up with that I don't spend 2-3 hours a week with. And I do with these guys here, and I've never met them. And I'm seeing some of the names on the side of our virtually live studio audience. And you guys are becoming part of the show too. So we're like, there's got to be a way to take this on the road so that 3 of us can meet in person, but also that you guys have an opportunity to engage with us, to play, to have not just a 3-view mirror podcast experience, but a greater Gen X experience with the game being the anchor. But we realize that the show's not a big enough draw just yet. We think it can be, we think it should be, but it's just not. So what we're going to try to do is on my Sunday night Wonderful World of Gen X once a week, we're also going to throw a different kind of episode there. Once a month, I should say, where we don't do a full-blown episode where it takes over, because the best part of that show is the audience really runs it. But we're going to just do like mini topics and have some fun with it, and introduce it there. But we're open to ideas. I'm going to lean on you guys as ambassadors to continue to share this out. It's up on YouTube long after we've finished recording. It plays well, and you guys are part of the show in the replay. I put your comments up for a reason, so everybody can see it. Share it, push it out. Let's, if there's anything to it that you guys agree with us that the show could be something, we're leaning on you a little bit to help, and then we see where we can get it, and hopefully by autumn of 2025 we'll be in a city near you.
Yeah. And we really do want the audience involved as more than just typing. We want you to truly be the fourth member of our show. Absolutely. And that, I think that's the biggest portion of this. So we're super excited about the idea that we can include you in more ways than just the typed comments.
Yeah, think of it like if we, I shouldn't say if, when we actually get on the road, think of it like a Scholastic Book Fair for Gen X. And we're going to have some fun. As John said, the show is the core element of it, but there's going to be all this other Gen X stuff around it. And ultimately, we just think it would be awesome to meet everybody and all of us get together and have a good time and, feel like we're kind of back, together from our youth, even though we never met back then. It will feel like we did because we'll all have the same things in common.
So, and somebody asked, am I doing a Wednesday show too? I mean, on paper, it's really just I do the Tuesday night at work. We do this together on Friday, and we have our Sunday night Wonderful World of Gen X. I've just been going on live from work because January sucks for restaurants and bars. Everyone's getting the Christmas bills and have not yet gotten the tax return money. So I've just been going live out of sheer boredom. And I figure if I can't hang out with guests, I'll hang out with y'all. But the biggest thing you can do to help make this work is just hit that like button. Let's grow this audience. I always joke and say, bring a friend, but you can hit the share button on this and put it on your social media or share it with friends and see where we can go with it. I'm having the time of my life. When we committed to this show, we said whether it's huge or not huge, we're doing it because we love it that much. But all things being equal, I like huge too.
Huge works too. Yeah. That's what.
So that's it. That's the show for this week. We will be back on Friday. Continue to watch. Go if you're on Facebook, if you're on Meta. 3View Mirror does have a Facebook page. I'm going to throw a link up on my Facebook to help get you there. We're going to start posting there a lot more often. So if you're wondering when they're going to be on the Wonderful World of Gen X, when these tour dates are coming, what you can do to help, make sure you're subscribing to our Facebook page to follow that Facebook page. That's where the information is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we look super forward to it. Oh, by the way, it was Jeremy Allen White. He was in Shameless and a show called The Bear. Somebody said BJ and the Bear. I'm like, no, Jeremy.
Oh, BJ and the Bear was awesome.
Yeah, it was. But it was Jeremy Allen White that was a Calvin Klein model. So.
BJ and the Bear is way better than the Bear.
Way better.
Yeah. Okay.
And Hellraiser, that is exactly the point. Meet and greet would be a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, guys. We're late.
It's going to be wonderful.
It's going to be amazing, and it's going to get done. And it's literally, it's what we've always talked about, that we're the generation that our bikes were in the front and we were all playing in the back and everyone was invited. And that's what we want to do.
Bikes in the front, party in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a human mullet. All right, y'all. Again, John Catrice, Gen X Jono. I am out. See ya. Peace.
See ya, everyone.
Bye. Stay rad, everybody.
All right. Oh, I didn't do the out music. Meh. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Meh.